So, it's been a few days since we got Act 4, and I wanted to discuss some worrying trends that I think are leading Mad World to be more premium currency dependent. Upon the release of Act 4, we got several substantial and scary changes to Mad World affecting several key aspects of the game, and these changes have largely been seen as a nerf to the way that we played Mad World previously. So, in this video, I'm going to be going over the major changes we saw, like drop rates, crafting changes, gear, and potentials. And then, really quick, just as a PSA, there is a scam going around right now with mail. People are sending mail that is a bill. If you see billing price anywhere in your mail, even if it says gifts, do not accept. You will end up sending your currency instead. Now, admins are aware of this, and we are expecting a fix coming soon, but hopefully, this helps you guys avoid ending up losing your currency. Real quick, before we get into the video, I did want to say I will be releasing weekly Mad World content on this channel, so make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are interested in seeing more Mad World content. Now let's get into it. I think the biggest change that we saw when comparing Act 3 to Act 4 was drop rates. Previously, if you ran a dungeon or even just killed a handful of monsters, you were likely to receive a full inventory with a large variety of drops and needed to dismantle them to free up some space. But now, in Act 4 and onward, we've seen significantly reduced drop rates. Even blues are now almost dropping at the same rarity as what we got uniques at before. Yellows, uniques, and legendary drops are obviously even less common. And this is in super stark contrast to what we're used to and leads me sort of into my next topic I want to hit, which is crafting. Obviously, if you're getting less drops, dismantling less, you're going to be getting less materials. Now, this does incentivize actually farming for crafting mats, but this is seen as a less fun option when compared to doing PvE content. Here's a comparison of what types of drops we saw previously and after the nerfs on the same dungeon on the same difficulty in Act 1. On the left is me killing the boss pre-nerf, and post-nerf is on the right. As you can see, the nerf is pretty big and will have a sizable impact moving forward. Gear also received a pretty significant change. The system we had in place in previous acts seemed pretty decent in my eyes, so this change, while it isn't world ending, do seem a bit odd and out of place. Before, I would say we had more freedom when it came to gear, and these new changes about gear make it so we have to opt for more points spec'd away from offense and into other categories to equip that same gear. Additionally, since gold is such a key component of refining and optimizing your setup, the fact that we're getting less of it now, I've gotten rates anywhere from 150 to 200k farming casually per hour. Unless you're putting like crazy hours in, it's getting harder and harder to truly get your gear to be at its fullest capacity. We also got some more specific nerfs to bows, not super important for this video, but for those of you who are using bows, I think it's still viable, but with the first raid coming out on May 4th, it might be worth considering if you want to spec into something else. And finally, let's talk potentials. And potentials were something that we obviously haven't seen the full extent of. In Act 4, we did receive some changes to how potentials are laid out. Now, this isn't necessarily a negative, but a change that may not have been needed at this point in Mad World's timeline. As you can see, the masteries are at different points in the tree, leading you to have to path a little bit differently if you still want to hit those. Again, I think this change is something that within the next few months, we might actually be able to tell if this change was largely a negative or a positive. So, now that we've talked about drop rates, crafting, and gear nerfs, as well as some changes to potentials, what can we say about these changes overall that were introduced in Act 4, and why did I say they were a bit scary? Well, to me, the reason is pretty simple. I think that Jandysoft wants to increase the rate that crystals are being used as a whole. Drop rate nerfs mean that players are more likely to browse the black market to get higher tier items, mostly those legendaries and uniques. In addition to that, players are not able to craft nearly as much due to them dismantling less items. Changes to gear mean that you're speccing less into offensive stats, meaning those big ticket items like legendary weapons have even more value to your character. And while we don't have a definitive way to gauge how substantial these potentials changes were, I think the trends set in the recent patch are very clear. So, what does this mean going forward? What does this mean for the future of Mad World? I think there are two main ways to look at our current situation. You could view these changes as a way for Jandysoft to just test the waters, throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then reworking content that players disliked for the next patch. That's probably a more optimistic view in my eyes. What I think is more likely is that this is going to be a standard going forward. I'm unfortunately expecting to see things like this in the near future. Not to mention that we're going to be hitting level 50 in the next act, which is when you're going to need to pay crystals anyway to reset your stats and potentials. So I want to pass this off to you. What are your thoughts on these recent changes to Mad World? Do you agree with my takeaways that Jandysoft is forcing crystals to be more commonly used? You mind paying crystals here or there, or are you against premium currencies being used for stats in the game as a whole? I'm very curious about your opinion on these topics. And again, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.